How to make passive income with crypto lending. Whether you want to lend or borrow funds with crypto, this video is perfect for you. I'm going to show you how lending and borrowing works, how much you can actually make with crypto lending, and what are things like the utilization ratio, LP tokens, and everything else you need to know to become a crypto lending expert. Make sure to check out the timestamps below to easily navigate and subscribe for more how-to crypto videos. And let's get started. Lending protocols are crucial to the entire crypto industry. They are money markets responsible for bringing together two categories of users in the ecosystem, which are lenders and borrowers. For a user who wishes to borrow additional capital using their existing capital as collateral, they can do so with the help of these protocols. A simple transaction is at play here. So a lender supplies their assets to the lending pool. The borrower comes in and takes out a loan from that pool by providing collateral. The interest that the borrower pays goes to the lender, making the transaction ideally profitable for both the lender and the borrower. Naturally, the more assets are borrowed from the lending pool, the higher the interest rate the lender gets, right? Well, it actually all depends on how the market is performing at that very instant. And when it comes to the interest rate that lenders accrue from participating in lending pools, it also varies according to what is known as the utilization ratio. Thus, there are several factors that influence the interest rate that you can get from merely supplying your capital to a lending pool. How does it work? On what conditions does the interest rate depend? And is lending even a profitable passive income strategy in crypto? Let's answer these questions one by one. First, how crypto lending works. When lenders supply their tokens to a liquidity pool known as an LP, they are issued LP tokens in return, which are minted by the smart contract and represent the underlying supply tokens, meaning they can be pegged at 1-to-1 or can be value accrual tokens that steadily increase in value as interest rate accrues. After some time, when the lender wants to withdraw their tokens, they can simply return their LP tokens and get the original tokens in return. Naturally, the lenders in this case will only supply their capital to the LP if they see that there is a chance to make a profit. Similarly, when a user wants to borrow a loan against the lending pool, they supply supported tokens as collateral. These tokens are either deposited within the LP or they are kept in the borrower's wallets, but the LP is able to seize them in case the borrower fails to repay the loan. In the case that they do fail to pay the loan back, then a liquidation will occur. Protocol steps in to pay the loan back and gets the borrower's collateral at a discounted price for doing so. So what is the utilization ratio and how does it work? This kind of dynamic between lenders, borrowers, and even liquidators ensures that the lending pools are able to support the transactions regardless of what the market conditions are. To ensure that there is always enough liquidity for borrowers and that there are always enough borrowers for lenders to supply their funds to the pool, a formula is used. In its simplest form, it looks like this. Utilization ratio equals borrowed capital divided by total capital. Here, the utilization ratio refers to how the LP is being utilized. If the total amount of borrowed capital exceeds the total capital available, then the utilization ratio will exceed the value of 1, and hence there won't be enough liquidity available for new borrowers to borrow capital. However, if the borrowed capital is 0, that is, no borrows on the LP are taking place, then the utilization ratio will also go to 0, making it almost impossible for lenders to deposit their capital. Just imagine if there are no borrowers present, then what's the point for a lender to supply their capital? But why must these things matter? Well, they matter because for any lender to supply their assets, the LP needs to have enough utilization that they are making healthy returns on their assets. Otherwise, they can end up locking up their capital without generating any meaningful returns. The interest rate that you get on your deposited capital varies according to market conditions. If there is a high demand in the market for borrowed assets, then the rates will be increased to ensure that the utilization ratio remains stable. On the other hand, if there is low borrowing in the market, then the interest rates will be decreased to encourage borrowing. In the first case, a lender is earning more interest on their lent capital, and in the latter case, they are earning less. While these rates do fluctuate, lending protocols today are considered one of the the more reliable ways of generating yield. However, this is often offset by the governance subsidy that you get while using these protocols. Whenever you use a lending protocol such as Compound, which is a decentralized autonomous organization or DAO, you get the governance token in return, which in this case is the token COMP. These are value-based accrual tokens, and you can use them to participate in governance decisions in the protocol. So, can I make passive income from lending and borrowing protocols? Lending protocols allow you to put idle capital to work by easily supplying them to a lending protocol and start earning interest. You are also entitled to governance tokens that are value accrual tokens. However, the interest that you get from supplying liquidity is dependent on how the market is performing. That said, since the top lending protocols have been used for such a long time, long in the crypto world that is, they are quite reliable when it comes to generating passive yield. Yield farming LP tokens. In fact, the LP tokens that you get after you've supplied liquidity to a protocol can also be used across different DeFi applications. When lending and borrowing was first becoming popular, the utility of the LP tokens were not well defined. You could hardly use them anywhere. The only income that you were generating in that case was coming from the interest that was being charged from the borrowers. However, now you can easily make income from using the same LP tokens by, quote, farming them in other protocols. In that case, on top of the yield from lending your assets, you also used your LP tokens to generate even more yield. The process is known as compounding, and the DeFi feature that enables this is known as composability. Since lending protocols occupy the base layer of the DeFi stack, other protocols sit on top of it and utilize its LP tokens to help users generate compounded yield. Compound interest is known as the eighth wonder of the world, and it is very powerful in growing your stack, especially when the underlying asset increases in value as well. However, be aware of what's called impermanent loss, or IL, in lending pools that require two equal amounts of crypto assets supplied, for example, 50% ETH and 50% USDC. Put simply, if you wish to avoid IL, only supply to single asset LPs. For more information, check out our article on how to reduce the impact of impermanent loss. We'll link to that in the description of this video. So how much passive income can I make from crypto lending? You can earn anywhere from 2% to 8% APY on your lent assets depending on the type of protocol you lend on, the asset that you lend, and the duration for which you lend your assets. Aave, Maker, and Compound are three of the top lending protocols according to market cap. We've posted a link in this video description of some supply APYs for assets across Aave and Compound. In conclusion, crypto lending pools are definitely one of the best ways of generating passive income within DeFi. If you lend your capital to any reputable pool like Compound or Aave, not only do you get consistent returns, where the only fluctuation comes from the market, but you can also use the derivative tokens across a variety of different protocols to compound your yield. Now, what do you think? After watching this video, are you looking to lend or borrow crypto? Which protocols will you be using? Let us know in the comments down below.